Welcome to the class, students. Today we will do tautomerism, another kind of structural isomerism, the last kind. In the last one we saw in the last class, metamerism, which is a special kind of positional isomerism. Sometimes people consider it as special functional also, because some limited functional groups are only used in metamerism. But actually metamerism is a special kind of positional isomerism, and tautomerism is considered as a special kind of functional isomerism. And for tautoisomerism, we'll see some example. This is different from other isomerism. Other isomerism, you have seen that two or more than two different compounds, they will have a same molecular formula but different structural formula due to variations. You have seen position of the different groups and substituent and all. Then your position of the different same functional group at different position, different kind of functional group, and also that all you have seen. But in this case, what is there? One single compound can be interconvertible to the other form, and that interconverted form, the previous form and the form which is obtained after conversion, they will be isomer of each other. So in previous all that positional, chain, functional, metamerism, you saw different compounds. They were having some kind of relationship. But in this case, we have single same compound that will be convertible to its another isomer, and the two isomer will be always in equilibrium, and that is obtained mainly by the change in position of hydrogen atom. This is another important. So first point to remember that one form is convertible to the other form, and the second point is that is the two isomers will have equilibrium, they will be at equilibrium, and the third point, that is these isomers are obtained by changing the position of hydrogen atom. So one kind, that this is tautomerism is of many kind. One example, if you see of HCN, HC triple bond N. This is hydrocyanic acid, and this is convertible, as I told. The two isomer exist in equilibrium, so sign of reversible reaction, and we will have HNC, a double bond and a coordinate bond. So you can see position of hydrogen in both. Here hydrogen is linked to carbon, and here hydrogen is linked to nitrogen. And the molecular formula is same, and so one form is convertible to the other. So these two forms are isomer and called tautomers. Then another example which is quite common is HONO, double bond O. This is called nitrite, HONO or HNO2 nitrous acid. So it is not actually nitrous, it is nitrite. This form is called nitrite form. You have done the names there in functional group. This is nitrite form, and this is convertible to HN double bond O and a coordinate bond O. So you can again see position of hydrogen. Here hydrogen is linked to oxygen, here hydrogen is linked to nitrogen, and this is called nitroform. This is nitroform. So two forms are different, and they exist in equilibrium. One form is convertible to the other, and both these forms are called what? Tautomers. The most important kind of tautomerism which is in your syllabus is ketoenol tautomerism. Tautomerism. From this mainly questions are asked. So for keto-enol tautomerism, I give you the example. The example which is mentioned in your syllabus is AAE. That is acetic ester. The formula is CH3, C double bond O, CH2, C double bond O, C2H5. This is AAE, acetic ester. So here the important thing you people learn and remember that any compound which has this group is called carbonyl group. This is carbonyl group, this group is carbonyl. So if you see a carbonyl group, BONYL, carbonyl group in any compound, then there may be I'm saying using the word maybe, there may be the possibility of tautomerism. So not only the presence of this carbonyl group, but along with this carbonyl group, there should be with this carbonyl carbon, this carbon is carbonyl carbon, both of them, but I am taking just one to explain to you. This carbonyl carbon must be attached at least on one side with a carbon atom with a hydrogen on it. In other words, that carbonyl carbon should have one alpha hydrogen atom present. Alpha hydrogen means hydrogen present on alpha carbon. Any carbon which is linked to a functional group is said to be alpha carbon. So if this is a functional group, then this carbon is alpha, this carbon is also alpha. One you can take as alpha, other you can mark as alpha just to distinguish the position. So both of these carbons are alpha. So hydrogens attached to them are alpha hydrogen atoms. So if a carbonyl group is there and to this at least on one side you have one alpha hydrogen. Suppose you don't have any here, here you have Cl. This side you don't have any alpha hydrogen, but this side you have. Okay, and suppose here you have one more Cl and only one hydrogen, then also it will have. But if this is not there, another chlorine is attached, then this will not undergo tautomerism. So this is what you have to remember. So what have you to remember? That if the functional group is a carbonyl group, then that carbonyl group should have at least one alpha hydrogen atom linked to it directly. Okay, so now in that case what this will be convertible to its form, how that I teach you. That is, so when we have two of these groups, this side also alpha, that side also alpha, so the carbon which is more saturated, that side is undergoing the process of tautomerism. So it will show on this side because this carbon is more saturated, more hydrogen atom, this carbon is less. So I will show one of this hydrogen atom separate to show you the conversion. So how it will be? This double bond will break, and when one bond breaks, a pair of electron is free. So this bond will break, a pair of electron will be free, that will be transferred on oxygen, because oxygen is more electronegative than carbon, you know that already. So because of that, one extra electron, one electron was contributed here in this double bond, one electron is contributed by oxygen, one electron by carbon. So when this bond broke, oxygen took back its own electron as well as carbon's electron which was contributed in the bond. So that's why one negative charge has been developed. So because of that, this has got extra pair of electron and electron density has increased. So it will attract the hydrogen which is in the closest vicinity. So here this hydrogen which is linked to carbon, carbon is more electronegative. So this shared pair is towards carbon. This hydrogen is already electropositive, and because of this polarity, this shared pair is pulled by this carbon. This hydrogen is experiencing more low electron density. So it is quite electropositive. So from here to here it will be transferred. So this will be leaving this electron here on this carbon and will be attaching to this. So when this is going out, it is going out as hydrogen ion, leaving this electron. So as hydrogen ion, it is attacking this and establishing a bond, and OH is there. So what do we have? We are left with CH2 here, and this is OH. It will be turned into, rest part will be as it is. C double bond OC2H, right. Now when this is gone there, then when this is gone there here, and H is linked, so I show this is here gone, this electron pair is here. So that electron pair will balance the valency and a double bond will be established. So I write this structure as it is. I have shown you how that is taking place. So here we will have a double bond. So one form is convertible to the other. Hydrogen atom has transferred from here to there, and the two forms are in equilibrium. This form is having ketonic group. So this is called keto form. And here we have, this is en and all. This is called enolic form or enol form. Enol form. And that's why this tautomerism is called keto-enol tautomerism. I hope this is clear to you. And so this is the thing that you have to learn for tautomerism. Now we'll come to the stereoisomerism. Next, that type of isomerism. First kind we have seen, that was structural. In structural we have seen different kinds of it, 5 of it different kinds, and then now we have come to the second kind of isomerism, that is a stereoisomerism. So for stereo isomerism, you have to do two kinds. One is geometrical isomerism, and second is optical isomerism. So first I will be covering geometrical isomerism. In geometrical isomerism, the important feature that you know, that the definition you know, two or more than two compounds having same molecular formula differ in their properties due to the difference in the spatial arrangement of atom or group of atoms. Spatial arrangement means arrangement in space. Stereo means space, a three-dimensional thing. So when the atoms, a group of atoms, they are arranged in a different ways in space, and because of that the geometry is different. So the two isomers will be called geometrical isomers. So in this you have to study two kinds. First is your cis and trans form, and the second you have to do syn and anti form and anti. So cis and trans forms and syn and anti form. So first I will cover cis and trans forms. Cis and trans forms. For cis and transforms, if you just see, that is the condition first thing, that they should have a double bond. They should have, first point, they should have carbon-carbon double bond. First thing, first point, essentially. But not necessary that all those compounds which have carbon-carbon double bond, they will show cis trans geometrical isomerism. But this is the first point to identify. The second point is, that is, I hope you know, these two carbons which are linked to the double bond, and that is your alkenes they show, and alkenes have got a common name olefin. So these examples are your alkenes, and alkenes are also called olefins. And therefore a carbon which is linked with a double bond, that is called olefinic carbon, or double bond is also called olefinic bond. So a carbon which is linked to another carbon through olefinic bond, or if a compound which has olefinic carbon means carbon linked to a double bond, that is the first condition. Then the second condition, the olefinic carbons which have its two valencies, remaining valency, two valencies are satisfied between two carbon, two remaining valencies of each of this carbon. You know carbon is tetravalent, carbon valency is 4. Out of 4, 2 have been satisfied with this, and this carbon is satisfied with this. So remaining 2 valencies of this carbon and remaining 2 valencies of this carbon, next point you have to see. So remaining valencies of olefinic carbon must be satisfied by 2 different atoms or group of atoms. These atoms or group of atoms which are satisfying the remaining olefinic valencies must be different. That is what, if you have like this is A and this is A, this is A, and suppose this is B, then it is not possible because both of these are same. So both of them should have different. If one is having different, other is not having different, then this is not possible. Okay, so here just look here. So this is the condition, remaining valencies, that should be the different. Okay, A, B, and this is, so if you have like this a compound H and H, and here you have got H and H, same, then in that case geometrical isomerism is not possible. And the third point you see, that is these valencies which are olefinic valencies which are satisfied by 2 different groups or atoms here on the different this olefinic carbon. So if this is carbon 1 and this is carbon 2, then at least one atom or group on both carbon 1 and 2 must be the same. So here if this is B, this is not B. If this is C, then also it is possible. They are different, both of them are different here on this. Remaining valencies satisfied by different groups or atoms. Remaining valencies are satisfied by different group or atom. This is this point. Now third point, that is these valencies which are satisfied, these groups or atoms, they should have similarity with the other one, means carbon 1 and carbon 2, they should have at least one same atom or group of atoms. So if these 3 conditions you have, now suppose you have this compound A, B, C, D, then it is not possible. Why? Although this is this remaining valency by different, remaining valency by different, but there is no similarity in the attached atom or the group. So then this compound will not show geometrical isomerism. Now I will teach you how to form the cis and the transform. So that is cis and transform. For that if you have this structure, this is your A and B, A and B. So if this is plain, then this way you can see if similar groups are on the same side, similar groups are on the same side of the double bond, then it is called cis form. And you can make its transform A and B, and here it will be B and A. What do you see? Similar groups are on the opposite side. The similar groups are on the same side. So then this form is called transform. So cis form and transform, they are geometrical isomers. I hope this is clear to you. And now I give you one example here which is very popular and mentioned in your syllabus. Take one example, C double bond O, H, COOH, COOH and H. This is called malic acid. Malic acid. Not malic acid. There is one malic acid also. This is not malic acid, this is malic acid. So malic acid, what do you see? Carboxylic groups are on the same side of the double bond. Hydrogen atoms are on the same side of double bond. Similar groups are on the same side. So this is cis form. Okay. And then you can make it transform by changing the position. Here COOH and here H, here COOH and here H. Similar groups are on the opposite side. Dissimilar groups are on the same side, and this is called fumaric acid. Fumaric acid. Not fumaric acid, not fumaric acid. Fumaric acid is another acid, not correct. This is in this case, this is transform. So, you have understood cis form and transform. Another thing you should know, transform is more stable. This is a stable more, and this is less stable. Why it is so? Because if you see in the cis form, this crowded structure, if I show the structure, here is the double bond, here will be O and H, crowding. Bigger group, then crowding, that is called steric hindering. Crowding of atoms or group of atoms, that is there. And this crowding is called steric hindrance. Hindrance means they will repel. Bigger groups, crowding will be there, they will be repelling. So repelling means they will not stay close. Here that bigger groups, bulkier groups are far, and so steric hindrance is weak. The repulsion is less, and therefore this form is more stable than this form. So this was about cis and transform, and then I will take a syn and antiform. So next is your syn and antiform. So second is syn and antiform. For that, take the example. The first example is aldoxine and ketoxine. Ketoxine, these compounds are obtained when aldehyde combines with hydroxylamine. Ketoxine is obtained when ketone combines with hydroxylamine. This reaction you will study in class 12. So for aldoxime, if R I take RCH double bond and OH. This is an example of aldoxime. Okay. So this aldoxime is there, then nitrogen has a lone pair. That lone pair is in the p orbital, so this is the way how we show. So in this case, your one form is convertible to the other form. How that is? Double bond here. So in this case, syn and Nt, we don't, here we have carbon-carbon double bond. In this case, we have one condition that we will have carbon nitrogen double bond, and second condition we will have nitrogen double bond. So first example I am taking here, first condition, when we have carbon nitrogen double bond. So double bond if you have here, then see either side of this double bond. So on one side of double bond, what do you see? Hydrogen and OH. These groups are on the same side, and in the other isomer we will have a OH on the other side and lone pair here. So both of them are aldoxime. This form is called syn form, and this form is called anti form. Syn form is analogous to cis form or cis isomer, and this is analogous to trans form. So this is your aldoxime. If you have to do for ketoxime, then this H you will remove by R. If this H is removed by R, then it will become ketoxime. Okay. Now, this was the example of carbon nitrogen double bond. Now, I'll show you for nitrogen double bond. Second case we have of nitrogen double bond. So example for that is azobenzene. That is your azobenzene. This is azobenzene. So you can see here phenyl group is on the same side, or you can say lone pair orbitals are on the same side. So this is syn form, and you have to make transform of this C6H5N lone pair double bond NC6H5 phenyl group, and this is your lone pair. So this is your antiform, and this is also azobenzene. So both of them are geometrical isomer. So this is there. Now another important thing I'll tell you, whether your this is there or your carbon nitrogen double bond, you have this compound you have which you have seen, which is forming RCHNOH, or you have got cis and trans form, C double bond, or I draw this way, C double bond C. Here we saw the example COH, H and H. And if I write trans form of this, we will have COOH, H, COOH and H. So what do you see here? If you see here, you may be thinking that one form is convertible to the other form than by rotation. This group is rotated to that side. Then you can see, you can think this is rotated to this side. You can think that this is rotated to that side. No, rotation is restricted. This is another point you have to remember. Rotation around the double bond, whichever may be the kind of double bond, carbon-carbon, nitrogen-nitrogen or carbon-nitrogen. Rotation around the double bond is restricted. Why restricted? If this is the double bond, see here. Okay, or you take these two pen as a double bond. One is here, one, so you have to bring this for this. This is a bond, you have to bring this side. So if you think that this is attached to this thing, if you want to rotate it, it will not be. I show it on my finger now. If I show it on my finger, this is here attached. You want to rotate? If you will try to shape, this will be twisting. Okay. So rotation around the double bond is restricted. Why? Because of the twisting of the bond. Because of the twisting of the bond. Therefore, what is there? Therefore, one form is not convertible to the other form simply by rotation. Then, one more thing you have to see, that carbon-carbon triple bond or carbon-nitrogen-nitrogen triple bond or carbon-nitrogen triple bond, they will not be showing geometrical isomerism because molecule will always be linear. So when molecule is linear, then geometrical isomerism is not possible. So these points you have to remember about the geometrical isomerism. Now the second kind of stereoisomerism, that is your optical isomerism. Optical isomerism. Optical isomerism. Optical isomerism. To understand optical isomerism, first you will have to understand the term optical activity. Optical is the word related to light. Optical activity. So, if you consider this ordinary light means the light which is consists of 7 color with yaw, and that ordinary light, if you have seen light coming into your room ever through a very minute pore, and if you observe that beam of light which is coming in, you will see that the dust particles are vibrating in this perpendicularly to the direction of the propagation of the light. The light which is coming in this way, you will see that dust particles are moving perpendicular to the same direction where the light is propagating. So that is, this ordinary light, if this is suppose your beam of light, I take the cross section of this and then I depict it like this here. So this is consist of, if your beam of light, in this particles are, and this is the direction of propagation, this way light is moving, and then the particles will be moving when the beam of 7 colors are there all. So particles will be moving in all the direction, vibrating. Movement means a vibration, will be vibrating in all the direction. So when it will be moving in all the directions, so that can be shown this way. Different directions they are vibrating. Vibrating, this is all vibrating. So this is your ordinary light. When this ordinary light, in which vibration is in all the direction, perpendicular to the propagation of the light, is passed through a device. This is a device, an instrument called Nicol prism, not nickel, Nicol prism. This Nicol prism is made up of two prisms joined together. They are of a special material, and this Nicol prism is called polarizer. Remember that. So when this light, ordinary light, is made to pass through it, then the light which comes across it, in that all this vibration will be set in one direction. They were moving in all direction, but now it will be set in one direction. So such light, when the direction of the motion is perpendicular to the propagation of the light, but in one direction only, but not in all the direction, that is called PPL, plane polarized light. Now this plane polarized light is passed through a special device, very long tube, that is called polarimeter tube. Polarimeter tube. In this, your organic compound is filled, whose optical activity has to be observed. So the solution of organic compound of the known concentration is filled into it, and then this light is passed through this polarimeter. Then the light which comes across this, we see three observations, 1, then 2, and then 3. Any one of the three observations we will have. What it will be? There will be no change, one thing. It remains as it is. No change. Second observation, if this is the propagation plane, that the plane polarized light has rotated to anti-clockwise. The direction of rotation is anti-clockwise, and in other third one it will be your clockwise. Clockwise. Any one of the three will be there. No change, anti-clockwise, clockwise rotation, and this is clockwise. If no rotation, no change, if no change, then the substance filled here is not optically active. Okay. And if it is rotated either to the clockwise or to the anti-clockwise, then the substance filled here is optically active. Now, how this is measured? So if it is clockwise or anti-clockwise, then how it is measured, that we will see. Okay. That is, this Nicol prism, the first Nicol prism which is used, there are two Nicol prisms are used. One is before polarimeter and the other is after polarimeter. So here is another. So now I will draw a little smaller figure. So this is plain unpolarized light. This is your this is unpolarized light or ordinary light passing through Nicol prism, which is your prism Nicol, and this is your polarizer. Okay, and SER, polarizer, and then here is your polarimeter tube, and then here is another Nicol prism is fit, Nicol prism, and that is called analyzer. So I'll teach you the phenomena. So when plain polarized light, this is your plain polarized light, means the direction of vibration is set in one plane. So this is PPL. In the beginning, polarimeter tube is kept vacant, and then one more Nicol prism is put to that side of the polarimeter. So either side of polarimeter we have got two Nicol, one Nicol prism, one on the left side, one on the right hand side, or one on the front and the other is at the back. And this is a system, and from here we see the light. Our eye is here and we see. So we see like this. We see here. So when we are seeing from here, we are looking across analyzer, then polarimeter tube, then we have polarizer. So what is there? In the beginning analyzer, this analyzer is, you can rotate. It is movable, you can rotate, and around this a meter is there. Through that you can know by how much degree it can be rotated from its original position. And so once it is empty and when this is fixed, from here we observe the light. So in the beginning we see sunlight, but it is rotated such a way that we see no light. Okay, then no light is there, we see, and then this is filled with the solution of the organic compound whose concentration is known. And that solution, when it is filled and when it is seen from here, then we see that some light is now visible. Initially there was no light visible, but now there will be some light visible. It means that is that some rotation has been caused to this PPL, and because of that, maybe clockwise or anti-clockwise, whatever it is, and because of this rotation we could see the light again. And then how much it is the rotation, for that this analyzer is again moved back such a way that again no light is seen. And then when it comes to the original position, then we can note down how much by degree it has been rotated. Initial reading and final reading we know. Final reading minus initial reading, we can know by how much degree this analyzer is rotated. That will give the idea by how much degree this light, plain polarized light, has been rotated. And that degree by what the plane of the polarized light is rotated is called observed angle, alpha observed. So alpha observed is measured through this device, analyzer. Now that is another thing, that if you see, if in the polarimeter tube, the length of the polarimeter tube, this polarimeter tube length, if we keep 1 decimeter, 1 decimeter means 10 centimeter. It's very small. If this much long polarimeter tube we take, and the solution, the concentration of the solution of organic compound whose optical activity has to be measured is taken to be 1 gram per cc. Then whatever the angle of rotation observed, that is called a specific rotation. A specific rotation. So specific rotation is observed rotation of the plane polarized light when the light is made to pass through 10 centimeter length of the solution having concentration 1 gram per cc. It is specific rotation is symbolized by alpha in the square bracket as power T and at the base D, where T is for temperature and D is for the D line of sodium light. Sodium light has got various wavelengths. So D line of the sodium light, this you have to remember. And this is equal to alpha observed, angle of rotation what we have observed upon L into concentration. L is for the length of a polarimeter tube, that is 10 centimeter or 1 decimeter, and this is your concentration of solution in grams per cc. So that is your specific rotation. A specific rotation depends upon following points. Number one, as you have seen, that is the length of the polarimeter tube, or you can say the length of the organic compound column. Second is your temperature of the system, and third you can say observed, or you can take wavelength of light used, and the fourth you can say nature of the solvent, and the fifth concentration of the solution. Actually this point is the most important. This should be the first point. Concentration of the solution, length of the polarimeter tube, temperature of the system, wavelength of the light used, and nature of the solvent, what solvent is used for the preparation of the solution. So optical activity you have understood, the specific rotation you have understood, and so now I will teach you optical isomerism. So compounds which show phenomena of optical activity, they will show optical isomerism. So what is optical activity? When the plane of the compounds which rotate, organic compound which rotate, the plane of the polarized light to either in clockwise direction or in anti-clockwise direction, such organic compounds are called optically active, and this phenomena is called optical activity. That's all. So in the next class I will teach you optical isomerism and how to make optical isomers and of its kind. That's all for today.